Hi guys, it's Joel again, and in this video we're going to be going over the Automax bone harvesting drill. Now I wanted to purposely start off with this picture here. As you can see, the Automax bone harvesting drill is put into your handpiece, so it is a handpiece driven bone harvesting mechanism. However, there's lots of different things going on with this thing, so I'm going to point them out all before we get started in the video. So the first thing you can kind of clearly, or can't clearly see here because it's a little bit blurry, but there's a point right there at the apex of the trephine slash bone harvester, because these bone harvesters are pseudo trephines, okay? But they're bone harvesting trephines. Now, with this little pronounced point here, it keeps you from dancing around onto, or rather in your on your bone or in your osteotomies. Okay, so that's the first thing. So what you're going to do is you're going to typically use this at about 800 to 1,000 RPM in dense bone, your more dense bones. And as this is turning, what it's going to do is just sort of gather the bone and mulch the bone on the inside. So there is this portion here, the silver portion here is hollow, and it goes all the way up to here, and it gathers bone from here all the way up into the chamber itself. Now this brass colored sheath is exactly that, is a sheath that's removable, and this sheath basically keeps the bone contents on the inside of your bone harvesting drill from slinging out. So again, there's lots of different things going on here, because this bone harvester is actually, in my opinion, underutilized for osteotomies, especially because it's gathering the patient's own bone. Now you'll see what I'm talking about in just a second. So let's go over the diameters first. The first diameter is 3.5. Now why is that important? Because your 4.0, 4.5, 5.0, and 5.5 diameter implants all have a 3.3 core, right? So with your more dense bone, your first osteotomy or size of bone harvesting drill that's available is a 3.5. So that means it's going to leave a 3.5 osteotomy, which is good in dense bone, because why? If you're going to be placing a denser an implant in more dense bone with the any ridge, you want the osteotomy to be a little bit larger than the norm. So you can start with this trephine slash bone harvester to initiate your osteotomy formation, because it's gathering all the patient's own bone. Now one thing I haven't gone over yet is from about here, from this edge here to the brass sheath, removable sheath, is about 4 millimeters. So this trephine slash bone harvester will go down into your osteotomy about 4 millimeters. Okay? Now, here's a little trick. If you needed to, you could take this sheath off and continue drilling with this bone harvester, okay, after you've removed the bone from inside, or you don't have to, either or, because the wall of the osteotomy is going to act as a sheath by itself, and this will gather bone even just a little bit deeper than your 4 millimeter markings, than your 4 millimeter depth here, that this sheath will permit it to go down. Okay, so that's just a little trick for you. So let's see how it works. Oh, sorry. And then the other three diameters sizes are available are 5.0. Okay, now why is that important? Because your 6.0 through 8.0 diameter implants have a 4.8 core, so that particular bone harvester is good for those. But then the next size available is 6.0, and the other size available is 7.0. Now why are those important? Because again, like we've talked about in the past any ridge drilling protocols, the more dense the bone, the larger the implant that you want to place, the more your osteotomy has to be almost the size of your final diameter of the implant if you're dealing with dense bone. So these bone harvesters give you not only an added value of gathering the patient's own bone and basically having a bone graft, autogenous bone graft there at your disposal, but it's also aiding in the formation of your osteotomies in dense bone. So let's see how it works. Alright, so here we go. So here you can see we're going to be focusing on two areas, here and here in the ramus area. Now just to point out, this is a rescue implant, nicely restored, and let's see how this bone harvesting works. Alright, so you make your incision, you flap, reflect, do all that good stuff, And there you can clearly see the reflection into the ramus shelf. Okay, so there you see the ramus, and there you see the Automax bone harvester going into town, or going into place, and it's going to town now. All right, again, all right, let me stop it right there. Look at all this void here. Now, again, like I said earlier, this whole thing is hollow. So this is actually gathering all that bone for you. Now, let me ask you a question. What better bone graft would you want? A bottle bone graft, or this type of bone graft in your voided areas for your immediate extractions? Because in immediate extractions, you typically have voids in the especially in the molar areas in your sockets. So what better bone would you want to use? This is just phenomenal tool here. So look at all that bone that you're harvesting there. So you just basically get whatever instrument you have and knock all that bone without sucking it up, and then knock on that bone off of the harvester. All right, now you can clearly see it again in use, and again harvesting even more bone in the osteotomy area, because the doc was basically forming all the osteotomies, the initial osteotomies anyway. Let me pause it right there. Look at all that bone. All right, that is a ton of bone, and it's not super small either. It's nicely mulched, but in your larger particulate size, which is exactly what you want. That's just beautiful. All right, there you see your implants going into place. Oops, I didn't show the void there. Okay, let's gathering out all the excess liquid out of the graft. Look at all that bone. There we go. Let me pause it right there. There you can clearly see the healing abutments in place, and there you can clearly see the voids around the implants that were placed. All right, beautiful, excellent. That's nice. Look at that. Again, that's all the patient's own bone from the ramus area and the osteotomy formation as well. Okay. And there's your implants in place. Bone all the way circumferentially around your particular voids around the implants themselves. And again, so you can see what I'm talking about. Now let's give an example here. Let's say, just for the heck of it, just so we can talk about an area. Let's say we're going to place an implant. Obviously this is a third molar, you would never do it, but this is super dense bone, and you needed to place a wider type of implant. Okay, you definitely don't want to place, if you will, a 4.5, something like that, diameter implant. Even though your any-reach implants have wider surface area, you wanted to place a wider implant. You could easily use your Automax bone harvester to initialize your osteotomy, and it would go down at least 4 millimeters. Again, like we talked about. But then you simply take off that sheath, and you could go down even just a little bit further with your Automax bone harvester, making your osteotomy for you. Okay, so there's lots of different options available to you with the Automax. It's clearly an advantage to having the patient's own bone and harvesting the patient's own bone. It has nutrient-rich aspects to it, and it's not bottle bone. It is autogenous. So this has been another video, hopefully for your use and friendliness here. And this is Joel.Gonzalez at megagenus.com. Should you need anything, email me and we'll get going. Thank you. Have a great day.